to another episode of the Jarring Science Club. In today's episode, we're going to be learning a little bit about what planets are made of and discussing some of the layers of our own Earth. Scientists believe that many of the planets in the universe probably have the same layers as Earth, or at least very similar layers. But this isn't something that they know for sure because we haven't actually seen very many planets. All right, let's get started. Here's what you're going to need. Some rice, some food colors in orange, red, yellow, brown, blue, and green, a plastic baggie for each color, and some vinegar. You will also need a jar. I like to use a tall jar when I'm doing a layer experiment because it's easier to see the layers that way. Now, if you don't want to color rice, you can use colored sand. All right, the first thing we have to do is color our rice. I'm going to use just under half a cup for each color. Now, if you didn't know, the secret to coloring rice is to add just a touch of vinegar to help the color disperse throughout the entire bag of rice. So I'm going to add just a touch of color to each of these bags and then a touch of vinegar. Now we'll seal the bags and shake them up. Now we're ready to make our layers of the Earth. I made these little labels so we could label each section of our planet layer jar. Now it's time to layer our jar. Over here we have the column layers. The very bottom is the inner core. The inner core is melted metal. Next we have the outer core, which is also mostly metal, but it's not quite as hot. Next we have the mantle, which is a mixture of metal and rock. Next is the asthenosphere, which is mostly rock and a little bit of soil. Then we have the lithosphere, which is the upper part of the Earth's crust, which is a good bit of soil and what most of us experience in day to day. And finally, we have the atmosphere, which is what protects us from space. Not all planets have atmospheres. Now let's put our labels on our jar. Today you made a jar of the Earth's layers. Here's the science. Earth is made up of three main layers: the core, the mantle, and the crust. And as you saw in the experiment, there's also extra layers. Scientists don't know for sure because we haven't actually visited other planets in person, but they believe that most other planets are probably made up of the same three core layers. Whether or not the other specific layers exist like what we have on Earth, we'll have to find that out when we get there. Even though there's many different sublayers of the Earth, we're just going to talk about the three main layers and what each one is made of. So on the inside of the Earth is the core. The inner core is made up almost entirely of metal. The inner core is about 750 miles thick. The inner core is almost entirely solid and it is made up mostly of iron. Next we have the outer core, which is also mostly metal, but this metal is not as solid as the inner core. The outer core is 1,400 miles thick and it's made up of mostly metal like iron and nickel and dense elements that you can find in the crust but not in such intense amounts. The outer core's temperature ranges between 7,000 and 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's really hot. Next we have the mantle, which is a mixture of liquid and solid rocks, a little bit of metal mixed in, and that's where you'll see tectonic plate movement. Tectonic plates are little plates around the world that interconnect and they're moved around by the mantle layer, the flow of the magma, and the rocks under the crust cause the crust itself to shift, often through earthquakes, whether they're natural, through volcanic eruptions, or human-induced through things like fracking. The crust is the part of the world that we're the most familiar with. In the ocean, the crust is about up to 5 miles thick, and then on land, it's up to 25 miles thick. So it's definitely the thinnest layer of the world. Almost all of our activity on Earth occur in the crust layer. That's it for today. See you next time.